little bit nervous for this one. What the hell is going on, guys? The other week I did a video on reptilian shapeshifters. We looked at a few cases, and one of them, the big one, was Billy Corgan, the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins, on Howard Stern, saying that he saw the same person shapeshift twice.
I know it happened. In fact, it happened twice.
And you guys were speculating hard in the comments, but one comment in particular led me down a wild rabbit hole, and this person got in contact with me. They are from Chicago. They are a musician. They hang around in all the circles that Billy Corgan was hanging around with, and they know this story, and they told it to me, and I went deep on it, and it all seems to line up, and it took me on a absolute wild rabbit hole into the deep, dark depths of Hollywood. I feel like this stuff is kind of all coming out right now, and that's why I'm going to talk about it, but I won't lie, this is one of the videos that I just feel a little bit kind of anxious to put up. But it comes from a place of wanting humanity to be a better place, so I think it would be remiss of me if I just ignored it. I think that's actually why we're in this mess in the first place. So we're going to run it back. I'm going to take you right back to the start. I'm going to walk you through the investigation that I've gone through. And I just want to say that the video does get pretty dark. So if you want to just find out who the shapeshifter was, you can find out and leave if you want to. But if you want to learn some hard truths maybe about what the hell is actually going on, then hang around until the end. And just to give you a little tip, I don't think we're talking about lizard people here. I don't think this is about reptilians. I think this is something much deeper, darker, and something that has been ongoing for centuries. My name is Josh. Welcome to Polarity. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. I promise every video isn't this dark. And if you're not new here, welcome back. Get a drink, get comfy, because this one is wild.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is in polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
All right, so I guess the best place to start here would just be to look at the clip of Billy Corgan talking about it. In case you didn't see it in the last video, this is him on Howard Stern on 2 different occasions telling the story of this shapeshifter. Check it out.
Say I was with somebody once and I saw a transformation that I can't explain.
The person transformed into something other than human.
Yes, I saw it.
You were talking to someone. They said to you, look, something's going to happen here. I'm going to morph into something else.
Imagine you're doing something and suddenly you turn around and there's somebody else standing there.
You still standing by it?
Absolutely. I know it happened. In fact, it happened twice. And on top of that, what's amazing is we live in a world where, look, I've been in public life on some level for 30 years.
Yep.
People treat it as if I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm here to say, like, now maybe I had a hallucination, but I saw what I saw.
Right. You saw it. It's your reality.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, to question somebody's reality is a strange thing.
The second time you saw a shapeshifter, where were you? Probably at Darcy's house.
It was the same. It was the same person.
Oh, it was.
This happened with the same person twice.
Billy, when will you announce who this person is so I can investigate? Seriously.
I wouldn't name names.
But it's a famous person, right?
I wish it was somebody famous.
Yeah, because then that would be awesome.
Well, think of the book sale.
It was like Justin Bieber.
If you release their name.
So there's a little bit more to that clip. If you want to check it out, go watch the last video I did on the shapeshifters. But we saw what we needed to see. Now, I just want to highlight, he does say that this person isn't famous in that clip. And the person I'm going to reveal to you in this video definitely is. But I think that's just Billy covering his ass, maybe trying to take the pressure off of people trying to hound him. Now, that's just my speculation, but there's a reason for that. And I think that'll become clear when we get to the end of this video. So I did a little bit of digging, and Billy also talked about this on Joe Rogan, and I found another interesting little nugget in this. So check this out. This is Billy Corgan about 7 years ago on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Oh, it's a fantasy world.
Yeah, that's part of the music business, right?
Yeah.
I got to ask you this one thing before.
Sure.
Is because I read this and I was like, what?
By the way, this was at like the last 3 minutes of their podcast, right? And you can just tell there, like, this has been on Joe's mind like the entire time. And he just is like, okay, before you go, I have to ask you this.
Here we go.
You saw someone Shapeshift?
Oh, God.
So nervous.
Is that real, or were you fucking with people?
No, it's true.
Really?
Yeah, it's true.
Because when you told me that you enjoy Kaufman-like moments, I was like, okay.
No, it's true. I would tell you off grid, but I won't say it publicly.
Really?
The only way I'd say it publicly is if I write it. And I've been writing this book for years, and it's in the book.
Really?
So I'd tell you off grid, but I can't. Look, I know Alex Jones sat in this seat, you know, right? I know you've been on InfoWars. I've been on, you know, there's
Have you been on InfoWars
Oh, yeah,
too?
I think 3 or 4 times, yeah.
What have you been on InfoWars for?
Mostly talking about free speech.
And that's where the conversation basically just, you know, I think Billy took that as a nice way to get the hell out of there because he obviously doesn't want to talk about it publicly. And again, I think there's a reason for that. And that's what we're going to get to. But he mentions there that he's going to be talking about this in his book. Now, this episode on Joe Rogan was a while ago. So I went looking into it. And the only book that Billy Corgan has ever released is called Blinking with Fists. And this is like over 10 years ago before that interview took place. And it's basically just like a poetry collection. It's not any kind of biography or anything like that. So we're still waiting for that book. However, you guys in the comments were speculating. A lot of people were that the person he saw shapeshift was Courtney Love. And I get it. I mean, you know, I can see that. I can definitely see that. But there was one comment in particular that stood out to me. This person contacted me saying they are a musician from the Chicago, Illinois area, which is where Billy Corgan is from. And he kind of grew up in and around those other artists and in that scene. And that this story is kind of well known in the musician scene in Chicago. And the person that Billy Corgan saw shapeshift was Tila Tequila. I know, it's wild, right? It's very strange. So I just decided to reply to this person. Given their background and where they came from and their little backstory they gave me, I decided this was a thread worth pulling on. So I just said, hey, I would love to know more. Please, if you can give me some more details, like here's my email, let me know. And I just thought, we'll see what happens. In the meantime, I began researching Tila Tequila. And I found this very strange video from her in around 2012 where she's talking about the Illuminati. So let's check this out.
So I'm making this video because now is the time, and I am about to release some very important documents as well as proof, so you know. And once again, I want to thank you all for your support, because the more you support me, the more I'm able to speak out for you and expose more truths to you. Because I'm the only one here doing this, and they continue to block me out and do whatever they can to discredit me, to make me disappear, because they know they can't just point blank assassinate me, because I keep telling you and warning you ahead of time. So if they do that, then everybody will know that they murdered me. They started saying that, oh, well, Tila's part of the Illuminati. She's just here to be part of the agenda to, you know, the New Age movement, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, now that there's proof that I'm not, now they're saying, and now they're going back to other stuff. So what is it? What is it, guys? So am I some haggard person who's been hiding my face because I'm so disgustingly ugly now? Or is it the fact, am I part of the Illuminati or not? Because one minute you say that I am, and now that I prove that I'm not, you go off and say all these other stuff. So make up your mind. Oh, as for Alex, you've lost a lot of credibility.
He's talking about Alex Jones.
Amongst a lot of people. I mean, even myself, I was a fan for a little bit, but then I started noticing as well that, okay, everybody listen here. Here's another valid point. Everybody who speaks the truth, such as myself, those who are like Alex Jones, for instance, he speaks a lot of these truths, right? He gets all this information. But why is it that he's still able to speak on the air? Why is it that he seems to be protected by some source? Why do you think that is? And why is it someone like Tila Tequila, who speaks of the same thing, I don't even go as far as Alex. I speak, you know, the truth as well, but why am I being banned? Think about it.
It's a pretty interesting point about Alex Jones. Like, he does out a lot of people. But I don't know. I guess he's kind of independent as well. But then again, people like David Icke have been kicked off of platforms and just flat out banned. That doesn't happen to Alex Jones. It is a fair point.
Because I'm speaking the truth, but I'm not trying to put people in fear. I'm not trying to scare you. Alex speaks the truth, but he does it in a way where he's fear-mongering and he speaks out the truth, but he speaks in a trembling way to scare people. Oh no, everybody, the world's ending. We're all going to die. We have no rights. To scare you guys, to take the power away from you. I speak the truth coming from the light, but giving you back your power. There's a difference. That's why I'm being banned and people like Alex Jones is being protected by the CIA, because he's part of the system to speak the truth, but to also instill fear into the world. So we're all scared and helpless and feeling hopeless. Whereas me, I'm speaking the truth as well, but I'm not doing it in a way where I'm scaring you guys. I'm actually speaking the real truth underneath the truth. I know this all sounds very confusing, but the fact is, like I said, I know all their tactics. I know the inside. Like I said, I have a situation that directly related to one of the leaders of the others. So that's why.
So this was all coming out, from my understanding, around like 2012, where she was sort of like going through a bit of a rough time and she began sort of speaking out, saying all this wild shit. Like a lot of these people in Hollywood do, right? I mean, Kanye is probably the latest version of it, but it's not anything new. I like Alex Jones. I'm not like having a go at him, but I can understand what she's saying, that he speaks from fear, right? And that he kind of does a little bit, the way that he comes across. And, you know, it's when you look at the news and the politics and all that kind of stuff, it is, you know, divide and conquer, play them against each other, fear mongering, like that is the tactic. So what she's saying makes sense, but obviously you're probably wondering like how this ties into her shapeshifting. Well, we're going to get there. He came back with an email, okay? Quite a long one. Now, he asked me to protect his name, so we're just going to be calling him the Chicago musician. And I'll have to blur out a little bit of the screen, but that's fine. So, Tequila Shapeshift. This is what he got back to me with. I'm just going to read it word for word, how he wrote it. Hey Josh, I'm the guy that left the comment about Billy Corgan and Tila Tequila. I'm not going to mention sources' names because some are active musicians and I do not want to ruin careers no matter how big or small. I did contact my former bandmate who was at the party to make sure my recall is accurate. This is what I was told and what I know. In 2009, Billy was seeking investment partners to co-found a pro wrestling company based in Chicago and other projects, but primarily wrestling. He planned a party and invited celebrities such as former wrestlers, athletes, musicians, and private investors to his Beverly Hills mansion he just purchased. Tila was invited by Sean Merriman, former NFL player. He was with another female as well. Billy and Tila got to know each other during the party, and he asked if she would like to stay the night. She did. My former bandmate, I'll call him BM, manager was invited, so he invited BM. BM manager was close to Billy, so the manager gets a call from Billy the next morning, and the conversation was something like this. Billy, hey, did you notice anything weird about Tila last night? Manager, what do you mean? Billy, did she seem off or different? Manager, I never met her before last night, so I don't know what different would be. Billy, dude, I think she is different. Manager, different like she is the one you want to marry? Billy, no, I don't know. Was I fucked up last night? I mean, I know I had a buzz, but I don't know. I'll call you later. Here she comes. The manager heard Tila's raised voice before Billy ended the call say, why the hell did you sleep in another room? He told the manager later that day he swore her face began to change when they were fucking. He told him the more she was getting off, the more her face contorted and took a different shape. A week or two later, he told the manager he must have had a hallucination and was still talking to her. They were never seriously dating, but would occasionally hook up. A few months, Billy came to Chicago and had Tila and Casey Johnson, her dad is the owner of the New York Jets, and Billy, Tila and Casey, invited several of his friends, including BM and BM manager, to his Gold Coast condo for a get-together. By the way, there is a Gold Coast in Chicago. This is not in Australia. BM said it was normal get-together drinks, a little smoke, he didn't see anyone doing hard drugs, and no one offered him any, and it was an early night. After everyone is gone, Billy and the girls were having fun. You know, hung out face. Billy calls BM manager about 5 a.m., absolutely freaking out. He said they were all, you know, through the night. He went to take a shower and came back in the room about 45 minutes later, and Casey was going down on Tila, and her face was shape-shifting again. Her eyes were completely black, and she cracked a smile at him as it was happening. Totally freaking out, he told the manager, "Dude, I have my driver taking me to my house." He also owned a mansion in Highland, Illinois. "Tila and Casey doesn't know that I've left. I'm going to send my driver back to take them to catch the flight back. I will take another flight tomorrow." Yeah, so that's how it went down. Billy saw Tila shape-shifting again, freaked out, and abandoned her at his condo. My buddy's manager said he was freaking out, and all he could hear was the same voice yelling, "Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage." I don't know if that's a joke or not. He's got a laughing face. He said, "Billy said on Stern he saw the shapeshifter once naked, but my buddy's manager doesn't know why he said that. This is how it was told to me. I can't prove any of it, but my friend is a solid guy. He never did the hard drugs. He certainly has never lied to me. His manager has also told me the story, and other people that were there did meet Tila and Casey. Who knows? Maybe she is a shape-shifting reptilian. Billy is convinced she's a demon." Happy to share that story with you. If you have any other questions, let me know. But at this point, I'm like, okay, this is a lot. I've got a few things coming to mind, but the first thing I did was to just go on ChatGPT or Grok and look up what is like Tila Tequila's background, because I don't know this shit. I don't know like Tila Tequila. That's not my world. I don't know who this woman is. Well, I've heard of her before, but like I didn't really know anything about her. So I just said, "Grok, please explain to me the murky lore of Tila Tequila, her relationships and past lovers," and gave me a bit of a background. And then we got key relationships and associated lore. And you can see here, Casey Johnson, which is who the person in the email was talking about. They were dating from 2007 to 2010. Tragically, Casey died on January 4th, 2010 at age 30 from diabetic ketoacidosis, possibly exacerbated by drug use. And it says Tila was devastated, claiming she was on suicide watch. And I think this, you can see 2010, this is a few years before that video that we watched. So I think this was like the catalyst for her to kind of go like a little bit off the deep end. But that off the deep end part happened after this encounter with Billy Corgan, right? So I just wanted to point that out and kind of look at those dates so they make sense. But let's keep going here. Sean Merriman, that's the person who invited Tila to the party. NFL linebacker, again, lines up with what we saw in the email. And if we come all the way down here, other rumored and confirmed partners, Billy Corgan, 2009 to 2010. Tila dated Smashing Pumpkins frontman Billy Corgan, a high-profile romance that ended amicably but quietly. Little detail is available, contributing to the murkiness of her dating timeline. After that, okay, and by the way, so let's just go back to the book, right? According to Reddit, it turns out that the book Billy was writing, where he tells the story of this shapeshifter, has been abandoned. Why that would be, who knows? Apparently, it had like 300,000 words in it, and a lot of work had gone into it, and we're never going to see it. Who knows why that would be, right? Now, bear with me here, because this is where we're about to turn a dark corner, and I think it all is going to link together in the end, and I'll tell you why, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on what that is, but we're about to go into like a new level. Now, the key detail in that email was that her face contorted and took a different shape, and her eyes were turning black, and this transformation is happening while she is getting off during a sexual interaction. This is the exact same details given by Juliette Bryant, the Jeffrey Epstein survivor, and literally to a T. And this video was in the last video that I did as well, but this is from a interview with Jay from Project Unity that is not new. Okay, this has been out a while. Check this out.
Can you explain what you mean by shape-shifting here?
Well, when I was in the bedroom with him, because he used to take me into that small bedroom, and it was always dark and really cold. And then it was almost like when he was orgasming or something. Like I looked at him and suddenly his face like grew big like this. And then I saw these huge black eyes like this. And then a big mouth with this horrible tongue and like this sort of dragon horn stuff, which is like almost like the devil, or I mean, I can't explain really what I saw, because I saw him turn into this horrible, creepy thing, and I wasn't on drugs, I wasn't drinking alcohol, nothing like that was allowed. Like a lot of people think there were parties going on there. There weren't any parties. There was no alcohol. Absolutely not allowed.
So there you go. Literally like the exact same details. And like I said, this is where the story is going to take a really dark turn. And you might be thinking, right, like, Epstein is the abuser. Tila Tequila is not an abuser, okay? If anything, I think she's a victim that's caught up in this dark Hollywood world. And we have to go down the rabbit hole before I can explain why. Now, just this week, and this is what I mean, this is all like synchronicity, things are coming out at the same time. Since I put out that video, just this week, someone who claims to be related to Jeffrey Epstein has just come out dropping like absolute bombs about what went on in her family and the history of the abuse and how far back it goes and how far reaching it actually is. And her name is Anya Wick, and she appeared on the Sean Atwood podcast. So I'm going to play you a little clip of that, and then we'll keep getting into this.
It goes back for generations. It goes back for generations. I remember my father confessing that my oldest brother is 8 years younger than him. Is cyclical. With men, especially when they stifle it, they repeat the patterns, which I don't see as an excuse. I'm not a, but of course this happens with men. And power and pressure to conform is excellent as a tool for silencing people. They told me that we belonged to the cult of Baal, B-A''A''L. They told me this with consistency while I was being abused. Now, what you can look up about the cult of Baal, information that is publicly available, is that it is thousands of years old. It is a Phoenician satanic fertility cult. And publicly, it's supposed to have been eradicated. But to my knowledge and my experience, it is not. This is what people perceive the Illuminati to be. It is a group of elites that practices forced and uses these crimes to control people. They happen to have a huge reach over politics and entertainment. My great-grandfather, according to my father, was Walt Disney. Before he moved to the United States, his name was Artur Bick, Arturbicke. And his twin sister, who he had children with, who I am descended from, was named Minnie. That's where we get Mickey and Minnie Mouse. It's very cute, right? Except for when you consider the abuse that I suspect is still happening to children who go into the entertainment industry.
So the big thing that we're going to pull from that is the cult of Baal. And we're going to get into that soon. But first, I found it really interesting that like she specifically referenced the Illuminati as like the widely known name for this somewhat secret like satanic child abuse group. Exactly what Tila Tequila called them and referenced them in that video that's from 2012. She was talking about the Illuminati. Now, she doesn't specifically talk about like satanic child abuse stuff, but when we see the connection between what Billy Corgan saw, what Juliette Bryant saw on Jeffrey Epstein, this lady, Anya Wick, is claiming to be from the Epstein family, his niece. and she's telling us about this 1,000-year-old cult of Baal, right? Now, and that they have a wide reach on politics and in the entertainment industry. Now, Jesse Michels just did a fantastic 3-hour podcast with Jay from the Project Unity, the guy that interviewed Juliette Bryant and Kurt Metzger, where they went deep on Jeffrey Epstein's ties to, obviously, Israel's intelligence, but also his obsession with fringe science and surrounding himself with anybody who was at the top of their field, specifically from science, entertainment, and politics. They were the big ones.
What interests me and what we're going to cover on the show are the deeper threads around Jeffrey Epstein. What was he actually doing?
He certainly was not a financier in any standard sense.
Really?
That was a cover story, yes.
The thing with Epstein was he was obsessed with eugenics and creating his own race.
So they were taking eggs. They've got underground laboratories, right? I'm taken there in September. I think they've taken my eggs. They clone a baby in 2002. No one ever hears about anything again.
Perhaps one of the lesser-known threads about Epstein was his obsession with secret science. More specifically, his obsession with gravity and propulsion. He would fly physicists out to his island, Kip Thorne, Stephen Hawking, Murray Gell-Mann. He funded Lawrence Krauss on the order of $250,000.
I desperately want to know why Jeffrey Epstein knew so much about my work. And I want to know why he was connected to my graduate program.
How did you know he was connected?
You can Google it.
On his little St. James Island, he built a temple with occult symbology. And one of his victims claimed to see a UFO while on Zorro Ranch. It was like he was a front, a global honey trap for secret science, arbitraging the lameness of modern academia and the sexual repression of its scientists. Perhaps the weirdest through line with Epstein when it relates to UFOs is the fact that former OSS officer Donald Barr was headmaster of the Dalton Preparatory School around the time that Epstein got his job as a teacher there. Remember, the OSS was the predecessor to the CIA. Donald Barr wrote a sci-fi book called Space Relations about a future where humans have formed an intergalactic empire ruled by aristocrats. Half the book is about this intergalactic elite class systematically trading underage sex slaves and often using them to gain leverage over other elites. Ring a bell?
If you haven't already, go and check that podcast out. I'm going to leave links for everything we look at today below so you can go and do your own research, which I highly recommend. But I think to anyone who is paying attention in 2025, it's clear that some kind of blackmail operation is happening in the United States. We're told that the Epstein list is on the desk, ready to be released, and now next minute there's no list. Okay, that is clearly false. And I think it implies that the government is compromised. And it seems like it is in the form of blackmail. Child abuse and just abuse in general in Hollywood, is not a new story. R. Kelly, P. Diddy, there are so many victims, yet it all just gets kept so quiet, and it never really feels like a justice is served. Sometimes people get a smack on the wrist, they serve a little bit of time, but the problem doesn't actually seem to go away. And we've heard from many people that to climb these ladders in these kind of spaces, you kind of have to engage with this stuff because that's how they control you. If you're going to be allowed to have so much influence and reach, you need to be controlled. Why did Diddy need 5,000 bottles of baby oil? Why have 50 Cent, Cat Williams, and Terrence Howard all said the same things about him?
Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head. But when you lose your man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. But when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing.
Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times. 4 times. Just to protect my integrity and that virgin hole I was telling you about. Right. Because P. Diddy be wanting to party. And you gotta tell him no. You got to tell him no. I did. I did. See, I got the receipts for everything I'm telling you. That's why I can say them so freely.
Like all these years, you being the only one calling this out.
I look like I've been the crazy guy for a long time.
They said you're a hater. They
You're
said
a
you're
hater.
crazy.
You do this, yeah. And now everybody's complaining. My ass is hurting. There's all this shit that's coming.
50, you can't make jokes about it.
No.
The internet might come for you, bro.
All I'm saying is,
it might come from
you see it now. All of these complaints. People were damned. They were and pillaged.
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there, and he's sitting around just looking. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh.
If I had to guess, I'm going to say that P. Diddy was the expendable idiot running this operation in the entertainment industry on behalf of this Baal cult, okay? And I know that's a wild story, but just wait. We're going to get into it. Because many child actors have spoken out about the sexual abuse that they've suffered in Hollywood, and a big one that comes to mind is from one of my favorite movies growing up, Stand By Me.
You call my dad a loony again, and I'll kill you.
Loony, loony, loony.
I can tell you that the number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh, yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
Corey Feldman was one of the biggest child actors of his time, and his career just basically got extinguished because the story came out that he was a drug addict, like so many childhood stars become out of Hollywood, right? Well, he made a documentary about it, trying to tell his truth, and it was basically just like shut down and wiped from the internet. So when I was making this video, because I already knew about the Corey Feldman story, that was kind of the first place that I decided to look. I tried to find some clips of Corey speaking out, and you wouldn't believe it. 3 months ago, he sat down for a podcast to talk about the dark side of Hollywood with none other than Billy Corgan. I've got a few clips from that I want to show you, and they both say things that just reinforce everything that we have looked at in this video so far.
I hope you understand the gist of the way I'm asking. When you feel like it's personal, I oftentimes find myself wondering, what's the crime?
Right.
So, like, what crime have you committed?
Being a child of Hollywood. I mean, that's the crime. The crime is there's what I've come to realize. I don't know if you got to see my film when I put it out, My Truth.
I've not seen it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's hard to find since we don't allow it to be out there anymore because it was stolen, it was pirated, and it was given out.
I did read about that.
And all of this stuff. I mean, it was one of the most heinous, horrendous, horrible receptions of a cry for help that I've ever seen in my life, and Hollywood should be ashamed of it. But
so that's your crime.
Well, my crime was that I was a kid who was molested, who was given drugs. And so what do they do to those kids? They make sure that they don't have the power of the boys when they get older. So that basically you're, the unsung hero, you're everybody's favorite, you're the future of Hollywood, you're the golden child, and then you turn 18 and it's like, oh, here. And you're like, wait, what? 6 months ago I was the golden child. What happened? Oh, but he got arrested for drugs. His career's over. What? What do you mean? I'm 18 years old. I'm just getting started. Yeah. Yes, I did have a drug problem because you people gave me drugs.
Yeah.
Tend to get addicted when you're given drugs as a kid, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you've got years and years of abuse that you're trying to squelch the pain from, it's kind of obvious that there's going to be a problem. And they know this. This isn't the first time this has happened. It's a systemic issue.
I say this in sort of brotherhood, not to glom onto your story, but like if we're playing the game on what's your crime, my crime was telling the truth about my generation.
Right. And my crime was the same.
They hated that I told the truth, that this generation that was presented as integral and everybody was too cool for school. I kept saying, no, this is totally full.
So you're seeing a lot of the same themes there in what Anya Wick spoke about, this being fed drugs, this systemic abuse that runs in families and is just, you're kind of born into it. And that's just like the way it is there, which is just sick. But again, like these are all stories that we've heard before from other people as well. In this next clip, I think Billy is speaking about what he saw with Tila Tequila and potentially elsewhere, but without actually explicitly saying it. Given what we now know, I think you'll agree with me when you listen to this next clip.
What's interesting, I think, about your journey in this lifetime is, did you ever see it was a movie, but it was also a famous book, Day of the Locust? Do you know this book?
I don't.
Nathaniel West was a writer, I think 30s, 40s Hollywood. He only wrote a couple famous books, and I think he either killed himself or something happened. But one of the movies was made into a movie around 1975. It's about a guy who's like an art director working in 30s Hollywood. And there's a cast of characters, and he goes crazy at the end of the movie. But like one of the characters in the movie is like a Shirley Temple type character with like a child star, but it's a wannabe situation. He falls in love with like an ingenue who's hoping to make it in Hollywood. And he gets to see, so imagine a 30s take on dark Hollywood before there was ever such a thing as the take of dark Hollywood. Does that make sense the way I'm explaining it?
Yeah.
Imagine somebody writing way back then about dark Hollywood before anybody even knew about dark Hollywood.
Right.
Okay. But
because it existed.
Yes, what I'm saying is, I can read that book or I can see some documentary, but you've lived dark Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like not the mythology version, like the real version of dark Hollywood.
And I didn't even realize it until I put my documentary out. And it wasn't until that moment that I realized how real it really was, how much of a force it really was.
Oh, yeah.
And how much power and control they have over media, technology, everything that we do. And
Again, he's saying it wasn't even the abuse that he suffered. It was when he realized the power and control that they have over everything. Again, the same things that Anya Wick was saying.
The reason that I learned this the very hard way was because in the moment that I premiered my film, which I did completely on my own because I knew they would never give me the shot. I knew that I went to a few of the big places like Netflix and blah, blah, blah to try to get distribution deals. Nobody wanted to touch it. Nobody wanted to look at it. I'm like, but you're doing the Epstein documentary.
Or murder porn.
You're doing this, right. But what's wrong with what I'm talking about?
You didn't murder anybody.
Right. But also it's about kids being victims. That's the part they don't want to admit. Like, yeah, we can talk about Harvey Weinstein raping women. We can talk about the fact that there's terrible people that sometimes get away with stuff. But we don't want to admit that there's kids that are getting molested in our business. God forbid.
As much as I've been behind the wizard's curtain in
this bit
plus years in coming to this town, there are powerful forces at play that I don't understand, but I know they exist. So when you tell me what you're telling me, without knowing any specifics, without knowing any of the specific people, I know what you're saying is true. Does that make sense? And I hope that translates to anybody I would say it for.
I hope so too.
Because to people who don't know it, it just sounds like kind of a weird fairy tale.
Yeah.
Because who wants to believe?
And not only that, but they're going to write 100 stories that play to the idea that it is a weird.
But I think we're savvy enough in the world, given the political seasons of the last 10 years, that people are starting to really understand the difference between, let's call it, the media propaganda and narratives. But it's hard for people to believe that the Magic Factory, which is what this town is, that there's this other side to the Magic Factory.
There's an alchemy behind it, right?
Well, that gets into a lot of different things, right?
Very interesting term that Corey throws in there. There's an alchemy behind it. I mean, what does he mean by that? I don't know. But I think you can tell there from what Billy Corgan is saying, he knows that there is like a dark, evil force because he's seen it. He saw someone shapeshift. He's seen someone's eyes turn black. He's seen their face contort. And these people apparently come from the cult of Baal. And I think Corey Feldman, Billy Corgan, Juliette Bryant, and Tila Tequila, even though she seems to be involved in this somehow, are all talking about this cult of Baal. And we're going to get to the root of them and how they got to where they are today in a moment. But there's just one more clip I want to show you to just really drive home the dark side of Hollywood.
How much in terms of financial loss do you think you suffered?
Which part?
Tell me, I don't know.
My money was always taken. It was always taken.
Do you have an estimate of that?
Millions.
I mean, yeah.
I made $1 million by the time I was 14 years old. I went to the producers, had pension, health, and welfare because I wanted to get emancipated and get away from the slave trade. And I said, what's my buyout? What have I made so far? What do I have left? How do I get out? And they said, well, you've earned $1 million up until the point that you were 13. Now you're 14. And what's left in your account? $40,000. So I went to start the emancipation process, which, by the way, was gilded by and championed by the pedophile who was in my life that my father assigned to me through his work. So this pedophile comes in and, hey, we got to get you free of these awful parents. They're terrible. Let's do drugs and I'll, take advantage of you when you're sleeping, and then we can use the daytime to go and hire a lawyer and find you some clear defense. So how screwed up is your head then when the guy who's the bad guy is the one that's saving you?
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, he got me through getting the lawyer, getting to the emancipation part, and then proving to the courts that I was able to sustain a life without being supported by parents, because I was never supported by parents.
Yeah.
I've never known what it's like to have a mom or dad bail you out. I will never know what it's like to have your parents pay for your school. I will never know what it's like to run home when you're in trouble. I don't understand those concepts.
Yeah.
I'll never have experience in this life.
Man, the end of that clip's actually that hurts to hear. To hear someone say that actually does not feel good. So who are these people, right? Who are these people that, like Corey is saying, like Anya Wick said, it's systemic. It's like hereditary. You're born into it. Your parents abuse you. Their parents abuse them. This is like a religion, a belief system. Let's take a look at Anya Wick telling us a little bit more about Baal and the cult of Baal and who it is.
So what was the cult that you mentioned earlier, the ancient one?
The cult of Baal. B-A-B-A-L.
Yes. Yep.
I know very little about it. My family masqueraded themselves as Jewish publicly. But behind closed doors, at Passover dinners, when I was drugged, would admit, we are Satanists. Now, but I can understand, the public has caught on to this, but they call them the Illuminati.
More mentions of the Illuminati and this cult of Baal publicly masquerade themselves as Jewish, but behind closed doors, they're not Jewish at all. They are Satanists. Baal, Satan, essentially one and the same. And so Anya is telling us that this group of people who appear to the public as Jewish are Baal worshippers and are behind this systemic abuse that is rife through Hollywood and potentially politics, the Epstein list, and who knows where else. This immediately made me think of a news story that came out late last year of 160 children being rescued in Guatemala from an extremist Jewish cult named Lev Tahor. This is the story here. I don't know if you guys remember this. Guatemala takes 160 minors from Lev Tahor cult into protective custody amid abuse claims. This is on the 21st of December 2024. Guatemalan authorities said they rescued 160 minors and 40 women on Friday from a farm used by the extremist ultra-Orthodox Lev Tahor cult amid an investigation into alleged child sex abuse. Lev Tahor has accused authorities of religious persecution. So this cult, after being prosecuted for what they've done, have turned around and accused the authorities of religious persecution. If your religion involves abusing children, your religion's fucked. Okay? I'm quite comfortable saying that. I don't care what it is. In 2021, 2 leaders of the group were convicted of kidnapping and child sexual exploitation crimes in New York. This is where Jeffrey Epstein lived. I'm not saying they're connected. They might be, but we don't know. I'm just saying it's interesting. They allegedly kidnapped 2 children from their mother to return a 14-year-old girl to an illegal sexual relationship with an adult male. And that's the end of that report, by the way. I just want to say as well, Jeffrey Epstein had many houses, but I think he was known to mainly live in New York. Now, also, I just want to say, because I feel like there's going to be at least one person with fingers covered in Dorito cheese who's violently slamming their keyboard right now saying that this is anti-Semitic. Brother, get yourself a tap water and just take a deep breath, because this article is posted by the Times of Israel. Okay, this is not anti-Semitic like I said, these people are masquerading as Jewish. They are not. This is not, Jews don't do this shit, okay? This is not about Jewish people. I just wanted to like make a distinction of that because I know how many people in the comments can have IQs below room temperature. So as Anya said, this is thousands of years old. This is not anything new. And these people have their fingers reaching into politics, entertainment, everything. And we've got people like P. Diddy, Jeffrey Epstein. No one's really getting charged. We're not really getting names. Something is obfuscating the truth. All of these things seem to line up. But where does this cult of Baal come from, and how did it get its fingers so deeply into almost everywhere in modern America? After doing a bit of digging and from help from my community, this exact setup and belief system of Baal traces back to the Khazarian Mafia. And this story is so long and complex, but detailed incredibly well from start to finish in a fantastic 2-part documentary by a man named Chuck Swindle Jr. And I'll leave that link below if you want to go check it out. They're a combined length of like over 3 hours, but they're there if you're prepared to go into that deep, dense rabbit hole. But I will give you a clip and a little short summary to prefix the clip. The Khazarian Empire was formed as like a semi-nomadic group in this around the 7th century after a group of people who followed the god Baal were expelled from Palestine for following this god because it was about vampiric and like ritualistic sacrificial practices. Okay, the same things that these survivors are talking about and that we hear is going on everywhere in Hollywood. They were expelled from Palestine and they went north and settled in an area that was then known as Khazaria. Okay, and these people basically started an empire there because Khazaria at the time was central to all trade routes between Asia and Europe. Okay, anyone trading through there had to go through Khazaria. And they continued on their belief systems and their practices and would kill the travelers and the merchants going through there. They would steal their goods, their identities, and they would then meet up with their intended targets in Europe or in Asia. And that's how they began to dominate outward and build an empire. Now, interestingly, just before I show you the clip, because this is important, the area that was known as Khazaria is now southern Russia, and it also pushes into Ukraine, right where the war has been being fought for nearly three years now. And this clip from this documentary, which I highly recommend if you can handle it, explains how this cult of Baal gained its power and began to then masquerade as Jewish.
So 800 years later, an ultimatum is delivered by Russia. The leaders of the surrounding nations, especially Russia, have had so many years of complaints by their citizens that as a group they deliver an ultimatum to the Khazarian king. Send a communique to the Khazarian king that he must choose one of the 3 Abrahamic religions for his people and make it his official state religion and require all Khazarian citizens to practice it, and socialize all Khazarian children to practice that faith. The Khazarian king was given a choice between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. The Khazarian king chose Judaism and promised to stay within the requirements laid out by the surrounding confederacy of nations led by the Russian Tsar. Now, this is going to get critical to understanding how they've hidden themselves, in that they have hidden themselves underneath this guise called the Ashkenazi Jew. And they are not practicing Ashkenazi Jews. They are practicing Babylonianism, Talmudism. That's what they practice. That's the spirituality they practice. They have put an umbrella to be in secret, to remain in secret, that they're practicing Ashkenazi Jews, that they've taken on the Abrahamic Jewish faith. That's what they say. What they're actually doing is practicing Satanism, but they're telling everyone and they're appearing to everyone that they're practicing one of the 3 Western religions. And again, look at the pattern. You see the same thing happen in the Catholic Church. They tell you that they're a Western religion that's embraced the idea of Jesus and forgiveness and sin and the remuneration of sin and so on and so forth. But underneath that umbrella is pure Satanism. Just like the tunnels that are underneath the Vatican, they were there long before there was the organized church. It's because these people were already practicing this down in the tunnels underneath, the caverns underneath the ground, because they have to remain in secret. They can't do these things out in the open. They have to do them in secret because they know if normal everyday folks that are not brainwashed with this Satan worship won't allow for it. They won't stand for it. People will stop it. So they know they have to hide it. Despite his agreement and promise, the Khazarian king and his inner circle of oligarchs kept practicing ancient Babylonian black magic, also known as secret Satanism. This Satanism involved occult ceremonies featuring child sacrifice after bleeding them out, drinking their blood. I put that in quotes because it's a literal statement. After bleeding them out, drinking their blood, and eating their hearts. The deep, dark secret of the occult ceremonies was that they were all based on ancient Baal worship, also known as worship of the owl. Now, I'm going to begin to make a connection here for you. Now, worship of the owl. Have you all ever heard of a place called Bohemian Grove?
Yes, we certainly have heard of Bohemian Grove, and he goes deeper into this stuff. Like I said, the links are down there if you want to go and check it out. But let me just reiterate quickly before I get on to how this all, I think, ties back to Tila Tequila and Jeffrey Epstein, which, you can probably begin to see by now what I'm getting at. This is not against any specific religion because, in fact, again, these people are not Jewish. They are masquerading as Jewish. This is about good versus evil. This is about everyday people like us trying to work out why the world is the way that it is. And this story of Baal worship that seems to go back thousands of years to the modern day, which, like I said, is detailed so well in that documentary, seems to have a pretty good answer. And I personally, from my own research, think that this stuff is real. I think it's part of the terrible truth. If good and evil is real and we are to believe in the ideas of possession, people being possessed, and exorcisms, I think that maybe what Billy Corgan and Juliette Bryant saw was potentially people who in some way have some form of possession because they have sold their soul for fame or power by going through these rituals. And we always hear that evil can't manipulate your free will, but it can trick you and it can hide in plain sight. If you're unaware and blindly walk into it because you're oblivious and ignorant, that's on you, but it's not messing with your free will. But what effect does it have to those who do walk towards it with their free will, who know that it's there and intentionally go towards it? Because like Terrence Howard said earlier, people are selling their soul to take shortcuts to get what they want in life, whether it's power, like Jeffrey Epstein, or maybe fame, like Tila Tequila. I'm speculating there. And I'm not sure if people are going to watch this and maybe be frustrated because I don't have like a definitive answer, but even Billy Corgan said to Corey Feldman there that like he saw it with his own eyes, but even he doesn't know exactly what he saw, but he knows that he has seen it. And I think that once we collectively acknowledge it and see it for what it is, and when I say it, I mean just like this dark force that is in Hollywood and is in politics, and I think we can clearly see that because we are being fed lies, and that is so obvious. Once we begin to like wake up and like not be afraid to talk about it, because I'll admit, I was like super hesitant to make this video and go this deep, but like ignoring it to me just exacerbates the problem, and I don't want to be a part of that. So I think we should all be okay with talking about it because that's the only way things are ever going to change. And that's when it's going to lose its power. First, people need to even realize that it's happening. And then change can happen, and then the world begins to heal. And personally, I do think that is happening right now. I think people are awakening. I think we are in a shift. I believe we are coming into the age of Aquarius, and I think maybe there is something to what Vladimir Putin said when he said the vampire ball is coming to an end. Because as you saw in that clip, the Russians were the one who intervened in Khazaria and forced this group to stop doing what they were doing and align themselves with a religion. And they did that. They chose Judaism, but they never actually stopped doing what they were doing. It was just a facade. It's just a cover. This stuff is real, and I think Russia knows about it. I think people in America know about it. I think people in the West know about it as well. I don't think all the elites and all the rich people in the world are like Baal worshipping Satanists at all. I think people get to high places and see the world for what it is, and that's when you get people like Mel Gibson or Jim Carrey. They're just two names that pop to mind that clearly got high enough to see what was going on and took a step back. And then, you know, they get character assassinated, like everyone does who speaks out. Maybe one day my character will get assassinated. Who knows? I just want to say as well, I believe that there are things happening in the world that the public doesn't know about, and it is preparing to flip the tide in the war between good and evil. I really do think that. I can't give you any evidence. This is just how I feel. Maybe there's something to Chris Bledsoe's 2026 prediction of a revelation, of new knowledge, and maybe a big shift is going to come. And, you know, with what we've seen today, I think it's certainly needed. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. It totally comes from a good place. I know it got wild. And like I said, this all just started with someone saying, hey, it was Tila Tequila. And then I ended up all the way down here. I'm curious to know what you guys think about it being Tila Tequila, about the Khazarian Mafia, and about all of these people who are speaking out about this child abuse cult that seems to be rife throughout Hollywood. I mean, there's just so much smoke. There has to be fire somewhere. So thank you once again for your support, guys. I really mean it when I say that your support, watching the videos, the comments, everything, like it just means so much. I appreciate you coming on this journey with me. Stay safe, be kind, be good to each other. Make sure you're touching grass, and I'll see you all in the next one.
The world is a vampire.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.